All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. I'm the author of Love, Hope, Lyme, what family members, partners, and friends who have a chronic Lyme survivor need to know. And Athena, we've done over 60 Love, Hope, Lyme podcasts. We post a show every 2 weeks, every other Monday. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you so much. Go up, give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much as well. Give us a thumbs up, give us a question, leave a comment. We get to them all. Athena, there have been some shows where we've had like 50 comments and my guest has gone up. Yeah. Hey, I just want to make a quick statement. Although this is a podcast about Lyme disease, I'm not a doctor. So this is a disclaimer. There's no medical treatment being discussed here. If you are struggling with Lyme disease, co-infections, other chronic illness, please seek proper medical care. So I'm excited today. So we have Athena Brownson,
Yeah,
and it's kind of interesting. You were a professional skier and you're a realtor, you're in Denver, and you're going out with a really good message. So I want to talk a little bit here. I want to understand your Lyme journey, and
yeah.
then I want to understand, your message. What do you've done over 100 podcasts, you're doing a lot of speaking. I know you're working on a book, and it's quite remarkable. And a lot of people uh, look to people like you who've gone over the hill, right? They
Yeah,
know what you've gone through and you've reached a point. And I've interviewed a bunch of people, Athena, who, matter of fact, the very, very first interview I did was on my Sales Game Changers podcast. I do a podcast
yeah,
for salespeople. It was 3 people who had gotten over a hump with Lyme and
yeah.
created charities where they were
That's
giving
incredible.
back. Yeah. So introduce ourselves to the audience here. Tell us whatever
Yeah,
you want to tell us about your Lyme journey. And, then let's talk about what you've done to once you've gotten on the other side and things you continue to do and the message of hope.
absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me and for what you do. Your podcast has made a huge impact on my life personally and really enabled me to share it as a resource with my friends and family. Because Lyme is something that no one can understand necessarily until they get it. I would never have been able to imagine it, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst nightmare. If I rewind backwards, I grew up as from a very young age on snow. I grew up in Breckenridge, Colorado. My dad was a professional skier and a developer. And I was probably one of the most dedicated young athletes imaginable. By the time I was 15, I went professional. I was traveling the globe skiing about 300 days a year, if not more. And throughout that period, I had many injuries. I broke my neck a couple times. I blew 9 knees, a couple legs, you name it. But it was always if you do A, B, and C, you're gonna get better. So I knew really well how to get better, and I knew really well what I was capable of. And eventually I got to a point where my doctor looked at me and was shaking his head at my ninth knee surgery and just said, Athena, you're going to need a knee replacement before you're 25. So you might want to think about hanging up the boots. And I did that. And after a couple stumbles and I feel like that was the kind of first reinvention of self that I experienced, and losing the identity of being an athlete and figuring out what that looked like to me. And when I found real estate, it was like I found a new identity. I found something that I was passionate about and that I love, and I was surrounded by people that were, filled with grace and love and believed in relationship-based business and in helping people. And that's been, that foundation has been the greatest blessing imaginable, because in real estate it takes a couple of years to get going. There's no salary, there's no paycheck that's just guaranteed to come in. You're out there working for your commission and you get what you put in. And I
Yeah.
liked that because I was a skier. So, it was like if I trained hard, I did well. Well, if I worked really hard, then I did really well. And I feel like right when I started to hit my stride, I needed to have just a small neck surgery to clean things up. It was going to be the last one. And unfortunately, when I was recovering, I started getting these very strange symptoms. Not just chronic fatigue and joint pain, but I was getting a lot of GI infections, things that I had never experienced, and things that, coming from the body of a professional athlete, where I felt like I had complete control and autonomy over my body, to very quickly realizing that something was very wrong. And I always say, like, I'm probably one of the luckiest sick people, and I believe that because immediately the doctor that I went to was Lyme literate, and he said to me, Athena, I think we need to test you for Lyme and co-infections. And I literally laughed in his face. I was like, I've never seen a tick. I have no memory of being bit by a tick. Yes, I traveled a lot in heavily wooded areas, and I was in environments that there were ticks in my life, but it's something that was not on my radar, and Lyme disease certainly wasn't. Now, this is about 8 years ago from today. And so I got this diagnosis, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what it meant. I joined a Lyme support group and very quickly realized that it was going to be not the right, at least the couple I've gone to haven't been the right fit. It's been, it's a very depressing disease, and it's hard not to get overcome and weighed down by that. And being in an environment where people are really struggling is very it's very sad. And I realized that wasn't going to work for me, and I'm trying to educate myself, starting to see different doctors, look at, both functional medicine, Western medicine. I mean, you name it, I've tried it. In the number of times that I'm sure most of your guests have said, and myself, that I was told that it was in my head and that I needed a psychiatrist. Granted, I already had one. I have a great therapist. I do EMDR, and I have a psychiatrist. Like, my mental health is in check by professionals. But even the Mayo Clinic looked at me and just said, you don't have Lyme. You certainly don't have any of these autoimmune, like, it's psychiatric. And that's heartbreaking to hear, because when you physically feel so poor all the time, and I always say every day is a new adventure, because with Lyme, you never know what you're going to wake up with, because it's such an array of symptoms. But I began, trying different treatment modalities. And unfortunately, you know, my immune system quickly turned against me. Ended up with multiple autoimmune diseases, the worst of which, it's basically small fiber neuropathy, where my body was attacking the sheathing around my nerves. That then caused one of the most severe cases of an EMF sensitivity, electromagnetic frequency, which is basically, the ability to use phones, computers, go into grocery stores that have a ton of LED light, like, a lot of houses that have too much Wi-Fi or 5G, Bluetooth. Um, I quickly became so sensitive to electronics that I couldn't live in a home. So within about a year span, I went from being at the top of my game to feeling so badly that I needed to live in an RV that wasn't attached to any electricity. And I would wear protective, like lead gloves when I needed to write a real estate contract. But the constant in my life was the fact that I had a job, I had something that I was passionate about. And I think it's so key for people going through any form of adversity to have the opportunity to mourn, because it is, I did mourn the loss of my former self. But what I didn't realize for years was that this opportunity, this loss was actually an opportunity for me to reinvent who I was again and to learn who I really was apart from what I did, and um not looking at accolades to give myself that gratification and affirmation that I think I needed. And I honestly believe that, Lyme has taught me more about empathy and people and how to be a good human and how to care for people and be there for them than I ever would have learned without it. But I had a why, and I
Yeah,
think
so
that's the
let's
key.
let's kind of talk about some of the things that you just brought up. And first of all, just to reflect, you're a professional athlete, professional skier. That ain't easy. That
No.
ain't like no disrespect to any other sports, but as you're going down those black diamonds, I mean, there's no room for failure. And I've actually been to
No.
Breckenridge. It's beautiful.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it brings back to a very fun weekend that I had with some family members. Um, so a couple other clarifying questions before we get to your why and things like that. And, it's amazing to me as I'm listening because I've heard the journey that you talked about so many times. And our
Yeah,
listeners, everybody who's a listener here who has chronic Lyme, uh, has probably gone through something similar where very few
absolutely.
people, yes, you don't, when it's for people who don't know, when you get bitten by a tick, it's not like you're getting bit by a mosquito, right? So, or a bee, there's no stinger, it just embeds. So you don't really feel it. A lot of times it goes into a crevice or, a part of your body that you typically aren't looking at where there may or may not be hair. So you don't always see it. You don't always see the bullseye. And then you have problems. And then you go to a doctor a couple months later and everybody who's listening knows this. Oh, gee, you have the flu. Here's what you
Yeah,
need to take. And then you come back 3 weeks later or 3 months later. Oh, well, your joints are bothering you. That means you have arthritis. Here's the protocol for
exactly.
arthritis. And then 15, 20 doctors later, the doctor says, well, we've tested for everything. And people who listen to this podcast know how limiting true testing is.
No.
So finally, the doctor says, I'm sorry, but we've tested for everything. Doesn't show up as Lyme. So you probably do need to either tough it out or you need to go to a
Yeah.
psychiatrist. And then your family hears it and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, he just said the doctor who we trust, because he's a doctor, no
Hmm.
disrespect to doctors, said you need to go to a psychiatrist. And I've even spoken to some people, Athena, who have literally gone to institutions.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
So I want to ask you one quick question. Then I want to go back
Yeah.
to how your mind as a professional athlete allowed you to go into where you was mold
Yes.
a part of
Oh,
your
yeah.
problem as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, you name it. I got heavy metal poisoning, mold toxicity, breast implant illness. I had to have my implants removed. I also had implants in my neck, like discs. They had to be removed because my body was attacking everything. And it was also because my immune system was attacking me, it wasn't protecting me from anything. And I'm a real estate agent. So the number of homes that I've been in that have black mold, unfortunately, I call myself a walking mold detector now because I can feel it.
So
uh,
you've made some strides, and you talked about your why. And I remember I had a conversation. Again, I published the book Love, Hope, Lyme in
mhm.
July of 2022, and I've had, I don't know, 7,000 conversations since then. And
Yeah.
I remember I spoke to someone once who said she needed to go through the journey to discover who she was. Was she
Yeah.
this person with this mysterious disease, or the person who's had trauma after trauma, not being able to be treated properly?
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people who are in the Lyme, you know, uh, uh,
Community.
yeah, I was going to say the Lyme process, but
Yeah.
yeah, have had to, if they've gotten to the point, to really think hard about why am I here? Why did I get this disease? Just
Yeah.
from being in a park, just from taking a kayak in the Ozarks, just
Like,
from,
what did I do wrong? Why is this
yeah,
happening?
I didn't smoke five
Yeah.
packs of cigarettes a day. I didn't,
Yeah.
I'm not a coal miner. I mean, I don't work in a nuclear factory. I like to take hikes in the woods. So
Exactly.
talk about your process to figure out your why and where
Yeah.
you eventually got to.
Yeah. And that I think there is a in any illness, a period of anger and Lyme rage, we just listened to an episode on Lyme rage, and that is so real. I have never been an angry person, but I found myself having so much anger and so much resentment. And again, I was fortunate to find an incredible EMDR therapist who specialized in chronic illness. And what I realized was that, yes, this was my body showing symptoms of not just Lyme, but all of the traumas that had happened in my life. I'm a huge believer in the book The Body Keeps the Score, and when we store trauma in our bodies, it creates illness. And I think when we're not consciously processing that I don't know that we have the ability to truly heal. So I think the mental component is very critical, but it has to go alongside all of the physical components that can look very different for everyone, because Lyme does look very different for everyone. But what I realized, the number of times I was told, Athena, you should just go on bed rest or go on disability. I mean, I can't even count. And I always had, a really incredible, I still do, Lyme doctor who said, Athena, the worst thing that we can do for you is to put your mind in a place where you're not looking upward and forward. If you're at home in bed all day, that's going to kill your mental state. And that killing of the mental state is going to kill you. And to me, so for me, having this background in athletics, I knew how to show up. I knew what it looked like to be resilient and to have grit and to be accountable. And I think anyone that has Lyme or knows someone with Lyme knows that every little thing you do all day is difficult. Getting out of bed is, every morning still, I have to blast music and give myself a pep talk to get out of my bed. But what I've learned is that you have to have a toolkit of how am I going to get myself through the times where I don't want to go get through this, like when I don't feel physically capable. And I truly believe that by seeking your passion, by seeking your why, and that can be, it doesn't have to be work related, that it can be it can look like so many different things. And I think that's really critical to say, because this is in no way saying, you have to have the job of your dreams and love it and work really hard. It's no, but we need something to be passionate about that will get us out of bed in the morning. We need something that is going to, you know, Lyme strips you of joy. It takes your energy, it makes you hurt. So the things that you once enjoyed are no longer enjoyable. So how can we bring little sparks of joy back into life? And for me, that's like helping clients. I love it. But
Yeah.
it's you have to seek it. And unfortunately, it takes a while to get there.
So let me ask you a couple of questions here. Um, I love talking to professional athletes. As some people here know, I do a sales podcast called Sales Game Changers, and I love to bring on professional athletes to talk about the mindset, you
That's my
know.
best business school. So if you ever want to chat.
Well, maybe I will bring you on that sales one because I've interviewed baseball pitchers. What are you thinking
Wow.
about on the mound? As I'm interviewing here,
Yeah.
and I could go down a tangent. I don't want to, where
Mhm.
I'm thinking like, what's your mindset as you're a
Yeah.
professional skier and you're going down black diamonds? You're not thinking about lunch. You have to be so super
Yeah.
focused. But I'm going to get back to the line thing. So you're right, and you touched on this in your previous answer. There are people who are listening right now who are saying, I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
I've spoken to people, Athena, who have told me I couldn't get out of bed for 4 months, for 4 weeks. I've
Yeah.
heard spoken to people who haven't gotten out of bed in a year, right?
Yeah.
So you play the music, you have the mindset of a champion, of a professional. For the
Yeah.
people right now who are saying, yeah, great, Fred. Thanks for bringing her on. I can't get out of bed,
Yeah.
is your message.
And everyone's journey is different. And I think the biggest thing that I've had to overcome in order to start healing is that I was trained to push through um when I was in incredible amounts of pain. And I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. I think the best thing anyone can do is to listen to their body. And if your body is saying that it needs rest, then you need to give it rest.
Mm.
But are there things that you can be doing while you're resting that are filling your cup up, at least, mentally? Are there podcasts that you can be listening to that inspire you? Are you, interested? Do you journal? Like for me, if I don't do, my morning journaling or my evening journaling to get out everything that I'm feeling and going through, then I don't show up as kind of a person as I want to be. So, I've been there, I've been hospitalized for months at a time where I am in a hospital bed. And I would, if someone told me to just tough it out, I would have punched them in the face. So trust me, I get that. But I do believe that if we have this mindset of, okay, how can I make myself like 1% better than I was the day before? And I just finished reading Atomic Habits, which is kind
Hmm.
of where that concept's from. But it really was what kept me going was, okay, even if I'm in a state right now where I am physically not able to do anything, what does it look like for me to be 1% better than I was yesterday? And that could just be picking up a book and getting a few pages read. That
No,
could
that's a
be
great, yeah.
reaching out to someone.
Yeah, I mean, even in my world, in the sales world, we talk about that. And Atomic Habits, by Mr. Clare is a book I've read
Mhm.
numerous times,
Me too.
and James Clare, I guess. And so talk about what that might mean for Lyme survivors.
Yeah,
So, it's I don't know, is it going for a walk?
exactly.
Give some examples of, again, you're a professional athlete, but give some examples of what might be
Yeah.
the 1% improvement that people who were in that state or are in the state now could do.
I love that. So for business, a coach years ago taught me to basically create a weekly tracker of what I'm telling myself that I'm going to be accountable to doing. And instead of just creating it full of business activities, like how many phone calls am I going to make? How many notes am I going to write? Like it's not just business. What I did was I reinvented it into, okay, what are the things in my Lyme journey that helped me to feel better? And how often can I keep myself accountable to doing those things? And actually tracking it, like being able to check something off every day or every other day or twice a week, whatever it is. But I would urge you, anyone listening, to really reflect on what fills your cup. What are the activities that help your body feel a little bit better? Is it getting lymphatic drainage massage once a week? Is it going on 3 short walks a week? Is it going to a therapist once a week? Is it going to the gym and working with a trainer that can understand your journey so that they can meet you where you're at that day? My trainer I've worked with for a decade, and she can look at my face and determine if I'm able to even pick something up that day or if I'm going to need to just, you know, be extremely mellow and probably end up getting some body therapy done. But I recognize, or, is it reading a book and journaling every day? Like it doesn't, if you're not in a place where you have the physical capability, then don't beat yourself up. Like maybe make those goals, aspire to I think a lot of times goals get crushed by Lyme. We lose sight of the goals we had in our lives. And if we don't have something to look towards, to visualize yourself being healthy, to visualize what your life is going to look like on the other side of this. And then you work backwards. What are the actionable steps that I can take every day, even if they're minuscule? Because every single minuscule step you take ends up creating a much bigger impact, a mountain, than you expect it will.
Yeah, it's people who listen to the podcast know that I was originally going to call the book Love, Loss, Lyme.
Yeah,
And alliteration aside, I changed that because everybody has lost, right?
yeah,
Lost relationships, livelihood, friends,
exactly.
family. So, I like the message of hope. Um, I want to ask you two more questions. Again, we're talking with Athena Brownson. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, leave a question, make a comment. We'd be happy to get to it. I know Athena's going to look for them and respond. And again, if
Yes.
you're watching this or listening to this on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. Um, uh, One quick one. Have you skied? Do you still ski, or you, because of your physical injuries, you're just not able to ski anymore?
At this moment, unfortunately, I'm not able to ski. I still have multiple ports. I get plasma
Oh, okay.
transfusions a couple times a month. So I'm not there yet. I also kind of feel like been there, done that, got the postcard, skied 300 days a year for way too long, and my body hurts now. So
Yeah, that's insane. Look, I would definitely want to bring on the sales podcast to talk about the
yeah, I
mindset
would
of
love
the.
that.
Yeah, I think that would be fascinating. I want to ask you before I ask you for your final thought. I know you've talked about some lessons that you've learned along the way, and you've shared them. But what's one lesson you've learned about embracing change and
Yeah.
thriving through adversity?
There's no right way to do any of this. There's no guidebook on how to get through this, and it's more difficult than most will ever imagine. But you I think the key is to never stop seeking answers. It's so easy to be completely crushed by the medical system and get disheartened and be feel really hopeless. But we also have this incredible, especially with all of the AI capabilities coming out, I think that's going to make huge advancements and helping understand how to treat these things, because we're going to be able to understand, this case on this side of the world and this case and find similarities. And I think there's a lot of really wonderful things to come. But the key for me has been, okay, if something's not working, I need to listen to my body, not necessarily, always listen to one practitioner, but how can I get as much information and as many options as possible so I can figure out what the right path for healing is for me, because everyone's path is different. And there isn't a guidebook. So just as hard as it is to not feel hopeless, just keep trying, keep asking, look at resources. And if you need to ask for help, ask for help. That's
You know,
something I struggled with.
Yeah, it's really, and a lot of people struggle with that too. It's quite interesting because we often use the analogy on the Love Hope Blind podcast. People use this all the time, is that if you break a bone, if you break an ankle, every doctor in from Singapore to Sydney to Shanghai to Sacramento, they're going to take some X-rays. Maybe they'll operate if they have to, put you in a boot, and then have you sit on your butt for 6 weeks and then do rehab. You're literally someone
Yeah.
who's gone through that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
on the other side, though, there's no Love, Hope, Broken Ankle
No.
podcasts. No one's ever written a book on what family members need to know about your broken ankle. And
Exactly.
here you are, you're the living testament of someone who's gone through that. And people understood, oh yeah, she's a skier. She broke her ankle, broke her leg. I mean, I'm sorry you broke your
Yeah.
neck a couple of times, but yeah, it's
Hey,
like
it's not as bad as Lyme.
no, and then like you just said, it's you know what it was like to have every doctor on the planet
Yeah.
agree with treatment. There's no people protesting how to
No.
treat. There's no the quiet epidemic about broken
Yeah.
ankles, yet there is online because it is so complex. So just want to acknowledge you
Yeah.
for having the wherewithal to come on the other side and to go through,
Thank
before
you.
I did the interview, I wasn't quite sure what you had gone through, but you've gone through things that I've spoken to people 2,000 times about, and not to
Yeah.
minimize, but to say a human
No,
being like you, a professional athlete with abilities, with confidence,
it
with
can happen to
intelligence,
anyone
can happen to anyone just because
out
you're
of
walking down the
nowhere.
street out of nowhere and
Mhm.
for absolutely no reason. All right, Athena, give us one final thought, something nice, crisp, and brief that our audience can listen and end the show with.
As easy as it is to isolate when you have Lyme, the greatest thing that you can do is to express, find your tribe, find the few closest people, express to them daily what you're experiencing. Like, let people know where you're at. We often have expectations of how people should show up to support us, but we don't give them the tools or the information on how. And we can't do this alone. So if I can be your support system, reach out. But please find someone that you can share this with, because it is not a burden that you should carry alone.
That's great. Actually, I give away the PDF of Love, Hope, Lyme for free
That's
for chronic Lyme
beautiful.
survivors. I've given out, I don't know, 5,000 copies. Um, if
Thank you.
anybody, yeah, thank you. Feel free to reach out to me on any social media and I'll send you a copy. And I know people who've sent it to dozens of family members. People have
I
actually bought the
sent it
book.
to my family, so
Thanks.
yeah,
And if people want to get, signed copies of the book to send to family, reach out to me via social media as well. All right,
that's
Athena
so
Brownson,
cool.
thank you so much for your sharing your journey and for how you're helping people now get through this disease. Again, my name is Fred Diamond, and this is the Love Hope Line podcast.